King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. No eulogizing the Thunderdome tonight. None of that talk anymore. No more video walls, no more LED screens, none of it. We are back to live crowds across the board in all of professional wrestling. With most importantly, WWE coming back with crowds and going back on the road as it should be once again. Welcome to the Wrestling is Real podcast. We're back at it again, episode 625. This is a lot of big events going on that we just had when it comes to Ring of Honor's Best in the World. A lot of title changes that came off of that. I'll take a few minutes to comment about that. We have coming up this weekend Money in the Bank, which will be on Sunday night. Impact Wrestling Slammiversary Saturday night, which I will be doing both shows for both of those. Probably will be doing individual episodes for Saturday and Sunday to talk about it here on the program. Got that coming up for us. There's just so much more to talk about. We also have to go ahead and give some homage to Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who passed away. Take a few minutes to go ahead and tell you about that. Well, not tell you about that. You already know about it, but give my little bit of a take on that. So there's that. So much more, a little headlines here and there to talk about. But as we start tonight, the crowds are coming back, and it's the anticipation. How is WWE going to come back now? And what are they going to do? What are they going to plan on? And I'm not here to go and totally prognosticate on what they're going to be planning to do coming up this weekend and going forward. But it's apparently known. We know that there's a lot of things that need to be changed in order for this, for the programming to get back on track, for people to be happy about it. Because flat, limited storylines, that don't have much of a story behind it, not much depth, having the same dancing partners together, people that are very familiar with each other, working with each other on a regular basis. It's a broken record every week. To go ahead and see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Oh my God, Sami Owens. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. Seth Rollins, Cesaro. Seeing John Morrison and Ricochet. I almost said Prince Puma versus Johnny Mundo. And there's so many others. And just seeing the constant, let's get back to normal business with these guys, of people that are familiar with each other, and go back to that. With the other idea considered is that we don't even have really prominent opponents for either world title right now. Well, look at three titles are going to be, well, they're going to have, four of the world titles on the women's and men's side this weekend being defended at Money in the Bank and the Money in the Bank ladder match. So newsworthy, yes. We already know there's going to be a lot. There are going to obviously be some surprises. In order to go ahead and trigger and to really elevate that crowd and get them on the right note off the bat and keep them hot, if the company is capable of doing that. And this is because of the fact that with AEW, they did have crowds somewhat, or at least had people in the stands to kind of be able to go ahead and keep the same flow of action going on for a longer time, which was helpful for them. Meanwhile, WWE, for a number of reasons, had to do what they had to do during the pandemic because of them being a publicly traded company. The fact they have to, their broadcast partners are really practicing very progressive patterns of exposure and marketing themselves and programming. So when anything comes up, whether it's Pride, whether it's vaccinations, whether it's, Asian American Pacific Heritage Month, every time we have something that comes along, it's not just their normal run of here's Susan G. Komen, here's Connor's Cure. Now they have much more to promote and to be a part of. And because of their companies, the companies that they work with, they can't be like a private company that can be a little more, maybe a little more aggressive when it comes to not being so cognizant and being so overly tight and aggressive about protecting people during COVID-19. WWE is going to be looked at from a different lens.
a different microscope. They're going to be looked at microscopically. They're going to be looked at much more closely, much like the NBA, the NHL, NBA, and others. That's how it looks. So the other wrestling companies can go under the radar and not get so much push about that. So AEW coming back with their fans in attendance. Well, first of all, it would be their wrestlers in attendance. Then it would be some fans in a limited capacity, going socially distant, working out of Florida, working as they were doing. Meanwhile, WWE wouldn't want to take the chance on the fans. I understand that. There's a lot of different people that they have to answer to if they're going to do that. I'm sure Vince McMahon, of course, just to get WrestleMania to be in front of a crowd was very important to him and for everybody else to get that to happen. And even when they did do WrestleMania, it was with a limited capacity crowd and a large stadium. To even get that was something. But they were able to get that pulled off because WrestleMania wasn't going to be inside of a performance center again or a Thunderdome. It was not going to happen. Impossible. At the least, I think Vince McMahon wanted to make sure that was going to be the play. But when it comes to other events and getting themselves back on the road, this is where I think Nick Khan comes into play, and he has that aggressive role and says, we got to get back out there. We can't just sit back on our hands because we know the other wrestling companies are following suit, and we have to kind of pay attention to them. And fans were starting to come back to other events, and we're saying, well, we're still doing Thunderdome. We're kind of behind the ball now. We need to go back out and get the crowds involved again. We need them to come back. But the other side of the coin is you can say for business purposes, the money coming in for stockholders was good, but it's the exposure for the fans and for others just to get the product back in order. You need to get the live fans back. We know that the live fans coming back is going to absolutely make a significant positive jump for a little while in the ratings. The ratings are still struggling right now on both shows. NXT did have 700,000 viewers for the match they pulled with Adam Cole and Karrion Kross, NXT title match to lead off, to cap off the night of action, which was good. So NXT is a consistent program, but they are at a cap. 700,000 viewers, that's where they're going to be at. And there's not much more they can do right now to kind of elevate above that. They're capped off right now, it looks like. Unless they hotshot book. But even with a big main event title match they had, TakeOver Worthy, that was on that show Tuesday night, it didn't bring the ratings up to a certain level. That's not good for a Karrion Kross or an Adam Cole, because if you're not getting those kind of stars that have that draw, just to get them on a separate night of television on prime time, you couldn't get that audience to come right over. There's something to be said about that. So NXT, maybe they don't have enough, they don't have anybody right now that absolutely draws people, that is the absolute draw for that show. People that watch NXT watch the whole product. They're not there for one or two characters at all. They're there for the whole prize. That is your diehard, loyalist WWE fans that are watching that show. And those that enjoy good, like a good indie wrestling style, like a Ring of Honor, an old school ECW, or like an Impact Wrestling in a case, or TNA. That's the fan base there. And an older crowd, remember, for AEW, they are pulling in a crowd that is more of those that might have been, they feel like they've been isolated. And they felt like they've been, discouraged to watch wrestling that is anything with the letters WWE in it. But they will watch AEW and they will follow it. And there are a number of stars they really enjoy. It can, and we know the ratings determine that. Hangman Adam Page, Darby Allin. We see it. Jungle Boy. We see what it is. And then, of course, some of the major stars they have over there, like if it's Jericho or if it's MJF, we're seeing pretty consistently right now, they're getting certain stars up and over. Andrade El Idolo getting a segment on the show tonight, quick little interview segment. Malachi Black confronting Cody Rhodes. You're getting the right stars in front on a consistent basis, and they're not getting overexposed, which is fantastic. That is the right way to go on that programming. So that's for them. Impact Wrestling, they're working on their things with Sami Callihan and Kenny Omega this weekend at Slammiversary and building other storylines. They've been going along, moving along like a train, trying to reach a certain port. next pay-per-view destination. That's what they're doing. Same thing with MWA. Same thing with MLW coming back now with Battle Riot and their open draft. And everybody's doing their own thing. Ring of Honor coming back with their show. They're all back on their normal schedule. Ring of Honor having fans back. Everybody's kind of back to normal schedule. Except for Impact and WWE. Tonight, or this weekend, will actually encompass that. They will then normalize themselves. Because Impact Wrestling will then go back on the road. They can't go back to Canada. They can't go back to Mexico yet. But they're going to try to work out of Las Vegas. So that might be Sam's Town territory for them for a while. They might try to get a bunch of shows done there. And they'll work on where else they can work off of and go. Ring of Honor wants to go back to Lakeland. They're all working themselves back in. But now Impact Wrestling will get back on the road as well at the same time as WWE. Impact Wrestling is not going to have so much of an impact with crowds watching the show. I don't think it's going to make much of a blip for the roughly odd 150,000 viewers they get regularly watching first time on Access TV. I don't know if it makes much of a difference to see a jump. Maybe. But it does come down to what WWE is able to do to get their audiences back in check. And what's unfortunate as well is that WWE doesn't have the forethought, doesn't want to have the forethought. They refuse to have the forethought of trying to tease or build up anticipation for the events. So what they have sold for particular events has been just the brand itself. It's not about anything else. Now, we have, of course, heard a number of names that have been circled around. They say Becky Lynch. They say Sasha Banks. They say John Cena coming back, right? There could be other names that would come back that could make a blip on the radar to get people interested again. That very well could happen. But that's part-time, short stint kind of things of bringing people back. I mean, without the real forethought of actually booking to a certain point, SummerSlam is the culmination. And then Survivor Series doesn't really make much of a difference because it's just combining all the brands together. So after SummerSlam, this is the point where we start getting that lull, even more so. Because Survivor Series is a non-factor, except for some dream matches we might get within brands. Other than that, then we have to wait till January. So what are they going to do in this time? Which is also going to be weird because normally they would be on the road. They would be overseas in some of these tours. But now we're going to get all these crowds back. What the instant thing we're going to have is that every individual city will be happy to see that WWE's back on tour and coming back to their cities once again. So interacting with the wrestlers have been around. And would there be any interest in certain people that might get a significant pop over others? Like, ask yourself, who do you see of this pandemic era, the Thunderdome era, that really stood out that says, you know what kind of response are they going to get? I think Riddle is going to get a surprising response when everything comes back. I think Lashley will get a great response. Drew McIntyre, I don't know. I think Alexa Bliss, which they did do a thing where they haven't brought out the Lily puppet out in a while, that might actually help her out. And that might be a transition to make sure that the fans do not crap all over her once she comes out in the new character. We could see Bray Wyatt come back if they want to bring him back, and that could be a difference. But there's not a whole lot of surprises, not a lot of rabbits they can pull out of the proverbial hat. There isn't. So what does this company do in order to entice the crowds or really just bring the hype back? It's the best. This is the ultimate opportunity to reignite and reinvigorate your fan base. It has to be done now. Now, the changes we already know, the cleanup behind the scenes at Stamford, Connecticut has been done. And all those changes are now in place. So we know that's going on. What happens next? The question is, where do we see things going on with WWE to get themselves where they should be, where the creative product can be in a better place? What can they do in terms of what they've been doing within their own rosters? We know who they're working with, and we know who they're working on. And that's it. But really, you can't go back out and just keep putting out Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and then let's get Edge back out there one more time and just stir him back up one more time to go after Roman Reigns. You can't keep doing that. You can't just keep putting back Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre if you decide to do that again. Or people are going to respond well to Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal once they get that match. I mean, is Miz and Morrissey going to get over pretty well with what they've been doing? I mean, will Sheamus and Damian Priest do anything special? Like, well, what do you have that comes up now that's going to stir up interest in this crowd? Like, what's going to happen? First of all, I think is the fans are going to try to do their best to try to get themselves pumped up over what's been a mediocre product or subpar at best for 16 months. The crowd is going to try to create magic. They're going to try to chant themselves away, because what I think is going to happen as well is we're not going to get crowds coming into these events, whether it's Texas or Florida. They're going to be on their hands and knees. We're not going to get that family crowd that normally does that. I think the diehard fans that have been around for a long time that would go to these shows, they're getting out there as much as possible in order to represent their city and get back out and appreciate the fact that the company's back on the road in their city again, because they're expecting some surprises. Their expectations are high, of which I don't have those kind of expectations. I have predictions and prognostications of what they're going to do, but I'm not putting expectations so high. I know people want to do that. It's that fandom kind of thing that they want to do. Oh, this might happen. This might happen. This might happen. Go right ahead. Fantasy book all you want. I'm not doing that. That's not what I do in this program. I somewhat try to give ideas of what would work well, that would really be stand out every once in a while. But I'm not going to come out here and judge this product and just say, well, you know, I'm trying to be constructively critical. But I do think that the crowd's going to try to help certain stars get over just on the pop. Like, one thing they're going to be doing is, if they do like somebody, they're going to have to pop like crazy for certain people and get them up. Like the response, the survey that basically that WWE can do with their fans to see who stands out better than others. Well, this crowd needs to understand. They need to be able to make sure to get behind who they really want and really make them feel like, well, you know what, this company was misinformed as to who they should be putting over. And you really just put it back in Bruce Pritchard's face. You say, you know what, you're an idiot. You're a moron. We don't care about these certain people you brought on, so we're going to poo-poo all over it. We're going to boo like crazy. We're going to give boring chants. And we're going to crap over certain things on the product that absolutely need it, and justifiably so. But, like, here's thought process of mine right now. When I think of certain names and how they're going to be looked at when they bring them over. Like, WrestleMania is a different story. Now you got Rhea Ripley, women's champion, and the setup with Charlotte Flair. How are people going to respond to that match? Or that being put together? How will they respond with Bianca Belair going now against Carmella, because Bayley, unfortunately, is out at such an inopportune time, because Bayley really has been great. She is one of the standouts of this Thunderdome era. The heel character was just I didn't care for the ding dong hello stuff, like some of the lines they gave her, but she made it work. Like, there's somebody that's been around this company long enough. She took the heel gimmick and some of the goofiness behind it, and she made it work. All the way to their end right here, working with Bianca Belair. She did it. And it's not Bianca Belair that necessarily has brought herself up to a certain level. She stayed stagnant as champion. And Bayley did the best she could. And that was also given the storyline they had. But you already know, if it was in last week, it was the week before, how I felt about Bianca Belair. And, well, it was last week when I was really kind of breaking down the roster. If you didn't listen to last week's show, I really did break down from Raw and SmackDown their current setup of everything leading up to Money in the Bank this weekend. And I said with Bianca Belair, there's just got to be something more. There's got to be more of a fire, more of an energy in her to draw heat or to draw some kind of praise. I don't know how they're going to respond to her. Like, they did respond to the pop when she won the belt. But how are they going to feel about her now 3 months later? Rhea Ripley the same way. How are they going to respond to Omos, which didn't have a great match, putting him out there in a debut, unannounced, non-advertised? You know, tells you a lot when they just try to put it under the radar, to put him in a match very short and brief just to get him out there and be noticed. That didn't look good. You just have to ask yourself, there's going to be certain stars, the entrances are going to be really, really big to pop, and that'll help certain stars out to get those entrances back out there. Edge will obviously get the big pop out there. And I might be one of the few people that is not big about Edge. You know, to me, Edge is never going to get as over as he was when he was taking on John Cena for what felt like 3 years. The Edge-John Cena feud was, you know, I kind of like, man, we've seen it over and over and over. But in retrospect, just like John Cena, Randy Orton, but you can't deny they did really good with each other. It just worked. Even if the feud went too long, you couldn't deny how well that worked out. But now, Edge coming back again after the booking of Daniel Bryan and Edge, and seeing Edge all of a sudden coming back after Roman Reigns, the warped booking here, reverse booking style here, well, it's okay, even though Daniel Bryan and Edge were stacked and stockpiled by Roman Reigns, well, Edge could still come back out and go after Roman Reigns. Well, this is just an example of you don't have anything else to do. There is nobody else for Roman Reigns to take on because you've just have him destroy the rest of the roster. I mean, really, who do you bring out there if Roman Reigns beats Edge, which he will this weekend at Money in the Bank? Do you put a cash in attempt at Money in the Bank where it comes? Now, I'll say this. If Seth Rollins did win Money in the Bank, I actually like him winning the cash in. I like him winning the briefcase. And I'd like to see where Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns took on each other. It would mean that Seth Rollins would have to go and turn face, which I guess he could. He's kind of a tweener right now. It would help. I think it's the right time for Seth Rollins to go back. The Monday Night Messiah thing was, it would have worked badly in front of the crowds. I think we did have a little bit in front of the crowds. It just wasn't there. And I think it's time for him to go back to something else. So let's get Seth Rollins back to some kind of a babyface feel to him, and let him go ahead and be the next opponent to Roman Reigns, because you got a story there with their associated with the Shield, and just go with it. I mean, might as well. I don't know what you do. I mean, because one thing you could do in terms of the draft and things you could do to help this crowd get back into it is give them some familiarity of old times. So what you could do is, let Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns take on each other. We've had that feud before. Move New Day over. Move New Day from, say Xavier and Kofi. Move them over to SmackDown and let them go take on Usos. And let them have their feuds again. Might as well. Like, if I were WWE, at this point, you might as well just go back to some feuds that worked. And just go back to that. Like, what else are you going to do? The feuds that have been kind of like a little bit on time. Where, Shield members kind of going off after each other. Or having New Day Usos. And then working off the women's feuds. Obviously, when you get Charlotte Flair, away from the whole Rhea Ripley thing, whether she wins the title on Sunday or not, do you bring back Sasha Banks? Like Sasha and Sasha and Bianca should be a match to go back to. They can definitely go back to that now with the crowds. And if Sasha is able to come back for whatever commitment she's on, go right ahead. Straight off the SB's runway, red carpet, over to SummerSlam. And then just go back to that feud. Like, you just can't come back with some new feuds. This company's incapable of doing that right now. Like, you got to build some new stars. You bring some new people on, refresh the roster a little bit. So if Bronson Reed makes his way over, Toni Storm's going to make her way over. Okay, then you bring a little bit of fresh. And the other thing, too, let's put this in mind as well. We've still got some stars that have been kind of on the back burner we haven't seen come back. Keith Lee is still on the back burner, and we know that guy could be coming back anytime, too. That's a surprise in waiting. So he could very well come back. Randy Orton he's been a little bit away for a while. I forget how much of an injury he's dealing with, but we could see him come back. Bray Wyatt would be a surprise comeback. There's a lot of surprise returns that could come back after a little bit of while away that they can bank off of right now. So they could go with that, and they could just figure out their way. I mean, this should be one of the few years where the WrestleMania offseason should be pretty good, because they have to stir this crowd back up. They have to restore interest. And this just can't be the interest just because the pandemic's pretty much in our rearview mirror, and now we can go back to watching shows like we used to. So that instant return right there, the bloom on the rose is going to be there for a little bit, but it's going to go away. So that interest is going to go away. You're just going to have that, because then things will just go ahead and settle. Like the excitement post-pandemic is here. That's going to go probably for a good 3-4 months. But I guarantee you by next year, back to Royal Rumble season, they better get something ready to get people back to settle in like they normally do, and get them to go to a big WrestleMania in Texas next year. Like, they got to really work some things out. They also don't have the Saudi Arabia shows to kind of build off of as well. They won't have to worry about any of those shows, nothing in Australia, no Super Showdowns, no Crown Jewels, nothing like that. So no other big shows to work off of. After SummerSlam, it's just their gimmick pay-per-views leading up to Survivor Series, and that's it. So they have to rely on solely on just the brand name alone, and working off what they have and bringing back some familiarity and bringing back some feuds. Kind of just playing the greatest hits among the roster they have. That's the best way to put it. That's what they have to do right now, is run their greatest hits. If you want to get a couple of legends out there to kind of help out, hey, call Stone Cold to come over and help out with something. You can promote Stone Cold sessions, some other stuff, whatever. You got John Cena coming back. Now, what they should do with it, if they're going to do anything going forward, I just don't know if when you bring John Cena back, who do you put him up against? I don't think you automatically put him over to Roman Reigns. Do you? Like, is that the right thing to do? I mean, it's the right place to go. But I would like John Cena. I mean, when you bring John Cena back, he just can't be just here just to fill a void. He's a big deal, man. Like, that guy should get Hogan, Austin, Undertaker type treatment. John Cena deserves that. That guy just got off a very good showing on F9. Hell of a run on doing the Fast and Furious movie. He was really good in it. The story was really kind of cool, even though it was like ridiculous of the storyline on really suspending disbelief. But he came off a really big movie like that, and he's got Suicide Squad coming up in August. Man, he is on some big blockbusters. You could do some other things, like, if Triple H wants to get back out in the ring and run another match. I mean, you have other things you could be doing. You just got to bring all hands on deck that you can. Play the greatest hits, and then you start rebuilding and working your way back. But to get this crowd back to where it needs to be, greatest hits, that's what you do. Play off of that. Right now, the broadcast partners, that's what they're asking for. They want old school Raws. They want theme shows. We talked about that last week. And Stephanie's been having meetings with the broadcasters, with Fox and USA. They need gimmicks, special editions, in order to kind of boost ratings, because the normal setup doesn't cut it. So they're trying to find ways to just work off the nostalgia of this brand to help build up the ratings for both shows. Because of the interest factor for all they've done that's all up on the Peacock app, right? That's what they want to work on. Let's look at the shows themselves coming up this weekend. First off, let's talk Money in the Bank, Fort Worth, Texas. The Dickies Arena, by the way. Dickies, big, important, work clothing brand. So let's work off the bottom. Viking Raiders versus AJ Styles and Omos. And this match, your Viking Raiders, man, it's weird that they're coming back in such a short time. They just feel like a filler right now. And AJ Styles and Omos, they don't look like they're going to bring them up to do anything special with them right now. So AJ Styles and Omos will win in one of the first significant tag team title defenses, which, again, they haven't really had anything like that much since WrestleMania. They've been able to pull that off for 3 months. Pretty impressive. Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. We have one less opponent to be announced, but Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Asuka, Naomi, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, and Natalya. Out of that match, you could see Alexa Bliss winning it, I guess. Maybe Zelina Vega. But I wouldn't know until I know what that last opponent's going to be. And who they decide to put there. I don't know. Men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Riddle, Ricochet, Morrison, John Morrison, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, Shinsuke Nakamura, Seth Rollins. My money's on Seth Rollins. And if not, Riddle. There is nobody else I see on this list at all that looked viable. Or Big E. But do we need Big E to be... do we need Big E to have the Money in the Bank briefcase to help him out? Well, it could help. But he's already been IC champ. And you just need to keep Big E in certain feuds and just keep building him up. Like, get him away from the Apollo Crews thing. He should have already gone on to a new opponent, and Big E should already have someone else to go after now. But they don't. Like, for whatever reason, Big E's push has been just coddled right now. There's not much of a push right now. He's just kind of, in mediocrity stalemate. It's just it. Riddle looks like he's got some kind of push, and I could see them putting it on him. I just don't see anybody else. But I think Seth Rollins is the one that gets it, somehow, some way. It makes more sense, because then you could give him the reason for him to go and cash in on Roman Reigns, because they've already planted the seed this past Friday. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, Raw Women's title. Rhea Ripley's reign is done. I think it is. Charlotte Flair takes it back. And you could do a number of things. You could put her and Becky Lynch back together. Becky Lynch comes back, and she goes after Charlotte. And really only helps them both. Plus, you go back to this original storyline with Asuka and Charlotte and Becky before Becky got pregnant. You go back to that. And Becky having to go and give up the belt only to go and take it back. So why not? That would be the idea to go with. If they're going to bring back Becky, that's what I think would happen. Charlotte wins, takes that women's title back. And honestly, I just don't know if you keep Rhea Ripley up on this main roster. I think you send her back to NXT. Put her back to where she belongs. I'm not feeling her at all. And it's not she's not talented. She's just not working on this main roster. I just don't think this gimmick was going to work. I just don't. I don't have faith in it. It's not a knock on her ability. I just think the creative has been bad for her. And I don't care about this feud. Let Charlotte win. Just be done with it. Charlotte being a part as champion works for her. Let her be that. Done. WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston. All right. Okay, they've kind of sort of done the thing where they've said, Kofi Mania could come back again. I'm sure this crowd's going to try to do as much as they can to put the push behind Kofi. And it's viable to let Bobby Lashley drop the belt. But the one thing on Raw this Monday night really got me interested was I love Bobby Lashley's promo at the end. Him shutting down the Japan Lounge, destroying it, and putting MVP back in his place, and Bobby Lashley getting serious and really having it. Like, I love that shit. That was a great promo. I don't know where that came from, but that was awesome. And that's actually an evolution of the Bobby Lashley character. Where, MVP doing his normal thing, balling and this and that. And Lashley having none of it. Fed up because he feels like he's getting soft. Yeah. Good story. These guys must have worked something out, because they have absolutely done something to further the storyline that we originally had in Impact Wrestling with Bobby Lashley and MVP. This, I think, catapults Bobby Lashley to another level. Bobby Lashley can absolutely be brought to a stellar level now as a main eventer. You could really put something more to him, and you just got to give him somebody else to work off of. But really, have Bobby Lashley dominate, because we were already tired of him with Drew McIntyre. The Kofi Kingston match, this right here will be good. Seeing the build-up in the Thunderdome, much like the other matches, have not helped storyline, but this is going to help right here. Absolutely. Now, with Edge only being back a short while, he's going after the Universal title against Roman Reigns. The fact that he was able to go ahead and attack his cousins and bring them down, I don't know if it might. And then he did go after Roman Reigns. So Edge got his comeuppance to bring the seed of doubt. There is nothing in my mind that makes me think that Edge is going to come out with a championship. Even as a transitional champion, no. Edge is here to put people over. He is the legend, Hall of Famer that should be putting people over. I don't need to see him. You could, but I don't want to see it. I am totally fine without seeing Edge winning a title once again. I don't need to see it again. I think it's enough. You can dispute me and you can disagree with me all you want. That's fine. But that's what I really feel. That's how it comes down to. And that's the way it looks for Money in the Bank. So let me give my predictions again. So I'm going to say Roman Reigns beats Edge for the Universal title. Lashley will get over Kingston. Charlotte Flair will win the women's title on the Raw side over Rhea Ripley. I'm going to say Seth Rollins wins the Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm going to say, I'm going to just go with Alexa Bliss winning the Money in the Bank ladder match. You could say Naomi too. You could say Liv Morgan, but I don't believe it. I'm going to go with Alexa Bliss. I could see her putting Lily, the puppet Lily, in the briefcase. Something crazy like that. AJ Styles almost will win the Raw Tag Team titles. That's where I see things. That's where I see the whole thing put together. All right. Let's move along to Impact Wrestling Slammiversary. And we'll get back to some of the WWE headlines in a few minutes. But I just want to go and talk about Slammiversary because this is very important. Sami Callihan has been doing some press run right now. Did get it on podcast and was talking about Impact and really putting it over. And I really like what he said. He spoke with Alex McCarthy of TalkSport. Oh, that was actually an interview. So it's just a Q&A that he did for a publication. And Callihan will be taking on Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship. Omega's already been champion for 7 months right now, and no one's been able to go ahead and take that belt. So the question is, who is ultimately the person that Impact feels is the one that's worthy of beating Kenny Omega for that world title that Kenny Omega took from Rich Swann? Because Kenny Omega's overcome Rich Swann. He's overcome Moose, among others. What do you have next? What comes up? That's what you got to ask out. And it's not really, he's been, to have somebody, whoever's going to be Impact World Champion, that's going to beat Kenny Omega, is going to get a big jump off that. That's going to be really significant to say, this is the guy to beat Kenny Omega. Pretty significant. Now, Callihan was in character saying that Kenny Omega came to Impact Wrestling and not only disrespected our locker room, he disrespected the company I love. Everybody wants to look at me like the bad guy, but I've been fighting for Impact Wrestling since I stepped foot in the company. Why? Because I love Impact Wrestling. There might be some people in the roster that tries to use Impact, but Impact is where I always wanted to be. Everyone else is like, I want to go to WWE. I want to go to Japan. I've been there and I've done that. End of the day, my goal was to make Impact relevant again. And I think over the past 3 years, without a shadow of a doubt, I have helped make Impact one of the top wrestling promotions on the planet once again. Well, where I'm going to contribute right there is I'm going to say that Ed Norholm, Don Callis, Scott D'Amore, this regime and the Anthem era of Impact Wrestling they have vehemently rebuilt the brand. Impact Wrestling now is a very solid wrestling brand with a very good roster and a lot of underrated talent. Underrated talent. You got Moose, Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan. I mean, good stuff. The women's roster, underrated. Underrated when you got Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace and Tenille Dashwood and Rosemary. I mean, you got good talent there. Tag team champions of Fire and Flava. They got some good stuff there. Solid. And they are working on trying to build some stars. Jake something, I'm still not into him yet. They got a number of veteran mainstays that are from the WWE when it comes to Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. I try to build them back up. I can appreciate where they're coming from. The show's consistent. And then I don't even top of the X Division. Damn it. Josh Alexander and TJP and Ace Austin. Like, they're just solid, man. It's not a show that, I mean, I just think some of the matches they put together are kind of just laissez-faire, but it'll feel better when we have a crowd because watching Impact Wrestling with no audience has been very tough. And that little bit of time where I had, we had Matt Stryker calling the action did not help much either. It's going to be better to watch Impact Wrestling now with crowds. Like, that'll be much better. I think they had a really good run when they were doing Wrestle House, and they were really going with certain segments. I like the Swingers Palace stuff. That's been fun. Like, a little bit of the goofiness they put in there is actually pretty good. Tommy Dreamer doing the investigation to find out who shot Johnny Bravo. I thought that all that kind of stuff was really cool. And I'd like to keep doing that kind of stuff. But Impact Wrestling used to be a show I would just catch on the replay, but I do watch the show now. I mean, Thursday nights is good, and it's consistent. It helps out. Now, speaking about the fans, Callihan says that, quote, fans are everything. They're just as big a part of the show as the wrestlers in the ring and the people in the back. They mean everything. But on the contrary, I think Impact did COVID wrestling better than anyone else. I think it truly gave people the chance to see how good Impact storytelling is and how good it is on an episodic basis. I don't think there's a better show weekly. I don't think there's a more reliable and consistent show than Impact. And I think we show that each and every week. As far as pay-per-views go, I don't think anyone has better pay-per-views than us, and that's any company. Well, I'll say this as well. They're doing a damn good job on pay-per-views. These big-ass pay-per-views right here with Rebellion and Bound for Glory and Slammiversary and Hard to Kill, they are can't-miss pay-per-views. They do a damn good job on all of them. I look forward to these shows. Slammiversary, always a very good show. And that is really good down the line. I love it. It's really, really good stuff. Now, he also says, that's not just me tooting the horn of the company I work for. If you look at our track record for pay-per-view, every single one we have is a pay-per-view of the year contender. Slammiversary is our biggest show of the year, and I think this is the pay-per-view where it makes people go, once again, Impact Wrestling's here to stay. Now, for me, the other shows they put out regularly, the other monthly pay-per-views, they're fine. They're definitely watchable. Like, I'll catch them. And that's okay. But again, when we get crowds back, I think it's going to make Impact that much better. It's that they're definitely going to help with that. By the way, Callihan signed a 2-year deal with Impact in January 2021. So he's going to be probably a lifer there. That's good. Sami Callihan fits that role there. And he's doing what he needs to do to help out across the board. I appreciate him. I really do. I want Moose to win the damn title, man. He needs to be world champion at some point. I really feel like that. And I think Ace Austin's a future world champion, too. And, I'm also curious. We haven't heard much about Slammiversary and how they talk about things are going to change. The world's going to change again. We haven't heard anything about who could be coming in to Slammiversary, like the opponent now for Deonna Purrazzo for the Knockouts title, mystery opponent. Who the hell could that be? And who else could be brought in for matches coming up? That'd be kind of interesting, too. So, that'll be a good show. We will do a post show on that here at WrestlingIsRope.com. So make sure you're going to look at that. By the way, look at the website too. I made some changes to it again. I also changed the logo of the show. I really like where it looks like right now. By the way, I'm the one that changes the logo each time. And I decided to do another version of it. Not so red. White background. Looks cleaner. Looks better. I hope you like it. Again, it's just a variation of the original logo of the show. Still has the same block letters like it always does. And it just feels better the way it looks now. It's also just kind of uniform with the rest of my content out there too. So that's the idea. Okay, let's quickly go and talk about Ring of Honor's Best of the World, which I didn't get a chance to talk about that, which was not a bad show. I didn't get to watch it on Sunday. I actually watched it while I was watching Raw because I already knew Raw was going to be kind of weak because it was taped, and I was right. And so I went ahead and caught Best of the World. I was watching that with Raw in the background. So I'm only going to talk about some of the matches that really did stand out for me. I didn't watch the pre-show matches. Danhausen, I don't know why he's so over. I'm not big on the clown stuff and like the real kind of Joker kind of feel to it. I know he's got a crowd out there. Really weird that PCO was not on the main card where after all that's been done after he was a former world champion. I don't understand the mentality sometimes of how certain stars become world champion and all of a sudden you just throw them back into the mix. They just go back into the mid card and they don't stay at the top. Like Brody King, not at the top. Jay Lethal, not at the top. Dalton Castle. These are all longtime world champions. Why did they get thrown back into the mix? They get the rub and then they go away. They don't stay up there. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me when I see that. Briscoes over Brian Johnson, PJ Black, good match. And Briscoes, it's just a mainstay. And, they're just going to be Ring of Honor for life. I don't see them going anywhere else. They just fit what they do right here, and that's all there is to it. EC3 over Flip Gordon. That was a pretty good match. EC3 looking solid. Still getting into the gimmick that he brought in from Impact Wrestling originally to go after Moose and, change the narrative and the shaved head and all this stuff. Just, EC3 being there, they should be pushing him up the card at some point. Like, why not? Because for whatever reason, they want to have the Luchadors be the top of the card as opposed to someone like an EC3 right now or a Dalton Cass or a Brody King. I don't know why. Shane Taylor Promotions over Dalton Castle, Eli Isom, and Dak Draper. And then again, I just don't care for 6-man tag team title matches. Just doesn't make a difference to me. Josh Woods over Silas Young, solid match. Brody King over Jay Lethal. Jonathan Gresham over Mike Bennett. I know a lot of people were really pushing on this match because it was an old school match. Jonathan Gresham pick a body part and mess with it. And that was the focus. It was just ring psychology, old school match, traditional, and a nice 20-minute match. The Pure Rules format, it's a nice change of pace. It's a refreshing look at wrestling. I can appreciate why they really get into it. Dragon over Tony Deppen to be new World TV Champion. Gresham remains ROH Pure Champion. Violence Unlimited. So Homicide with Chris Dickinson, great. Over Foundation, where, you're going to have Gresham continue to go ahead and defend 2 belts. Well, yeah, let's just go ahead and switch that up. And Bandito over Roosh for the Ring of Honor World title. Good match. About time to take the belt off of Roosh. And let's just do something else with him. But there wasn't anything special when it comes to Foundation or some of the things they do where, we don't have any particular factions right now that are super big when it comes to Ring of Honor. Like their storytelling to me has never been anything special. When they're TV show, they're just more match than it is anything storyline to me anyway, when they talk about it. Doesn't make much to me. But, it was nice to watch them again. It was nice to go and see them out there. And, talking about a company that could really help getting some of the talent that's coming in from the releases in WWE, where if they are able to go and bring them on board, do it. If you're able to get some of that talent and try to just get some kind of a boost on that, because they have a pretty decent roster right now. They're going to bring the women's title back in the picture and do a tournament. That'll be cool. Otherwise, I don't know. Just not much else going on. It's working. It's chugging along. It doesn't. I just feel like Ring of Honor. I'll put it like this. I think Impact Wrestling's doing what Ring of Honor was doing really well 3-4 years ago. I'm really serious about that. That's how I feel. Impact Wrestling's doing more of what Ring of Honor was doing well. And Ring of Honor just has not recovered. But, you know, when you're working off a company like Sinclair that's not going to put much emphasis on what they're doing, you're just a product, but you're not a priority. You know, they're worried about Bally Sports. They're worried about, you know, their own content for all their TV channels, their own projects when it comes to their own cable networks that are very small in scope compared to others. Or it might not be on cable. They're just additional channels on your HD system or for a particular station. And that's about it. So there's got to be just more about them that works out. And, you know, will Ring of Honor kind of build itself back up? I think, honestly, NWA at some point could overtake the spot that Ring of Honor has. Because Ring of Honor right now is slacking behind. And, yeah, granted, they got some great talent that's been around for a long time. But, man, long in the tooth, you know, you got to work something out where, you know, you get some these established stars and bring them over some more. Like the importance of, they don't have a lot of young stars, really. When you think about Brody King getting the rub over Jay Lethal, but Brody King's been around for a long time. Josh Woods over Silas Young in the same vein. There's a lot of veterans talent right now on this roster. And there's not a lot of fire or a lot of heat behind some of these stars that really bank. Like Ring of Honor, you go for the brand. I don't know if there's any particular stars you're there for that are over, above, and beyond really there. Like, you know, you have the acts that you know and love. Briscoes, Jay Lethal, you know, Roosh is a big draw for them. And, you know, Danhausen and just like, you know, just certain things like that. It's just got to be something more to it. Just saying. Okay, so a few things I want to bring up before we wrap things up. So, over the weekend, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who hailed from Tampa, Florida for so many years in the World Wrestling Federation, died at 71. You know, compared to the first WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. Died the cause of death was dementia. He had been a gym rat since age 13, had a jawline as sharp as a mountain ridge, hair retained a bowl-cut coif, even in the midst of battle. His signature trunks bore Mr. Number 1, Der Full on the posterior. You know, he joined Mr. T. Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan in the main event of the first WrestleMania. During the era of Hulkamania, Orndorff frequently fought alongside or against Hogan, showing himself to be a rare figure, able to match the epic braggadocio associated with wrestling's main attraction. And then at a steel cage brawl, theirs was described as a clash of super egos. So he was a heel who relished provoking crowds. He had the coat with fans who tried to overturn the cab he was riding in, slashed his car tires, hurled a whiskey bottle at him, and while he was in the ring, giving him 27 stitches around the lip. Let me tell you, this guy knew how to get heat. He was good. Was damn good. He was old school as you can get. And the guy had a physique. The guy had a look. He could talk. He was damn good. Always had a good thing about him. Richie grew up in Brandon, Florida. Grew up in a trailer that was about 22 feet long with his father, who was a butcher. His mother left the family when Paul was young. He got to work out at a Tampa Bay gym run by a man named Mary Smith. And Paul was in awe of Mr. Smith's arms, who were about 20 inches thick. He was Mr. America, and he says that's what he wanted to be. He played running back at the University of Tampa, graduated in 1972, selected by the New Orleans Saints in the 12th round of the 1973 NFL Draft, but decided to go wrestling instead. And he already participated in street fights for money during his youth. He would be in his first championship, Mid-South Wrestling's heavyweight champion in 1977, according to the University of Tampa Hall of Fame, which inducted him to 1986. He was inducted into the 2005 Hall of Fame of WWE in the same class as Hulk Hogan. you put him in he was the Rock and Wrestling era. He was before that. Also worked in WCW for quite a while. That guy was one of the most consistent damn wrestlers you had over 3 decades. 70s, 80s, into the 90s. He was awesome. He was great. So 71, too early for him to go away, but man, what a hell of a star. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Sad to see the news about him and his passing. So respects and condolences to his family and friends. A few other headlines to bring up. More live dates been announced by WWE. So they're saying now that, among other things, Extreme Rules will be held at Nationwide Arena at Columbus, Ohio, Sunday, September 26th. And that'll be the third pay-per-view in WWE's return to touring. And so we'll have Money in the Bank in Fort Worth this Sunday, which we'll also do a post-show right here at WrestlingObserver.com. And then SummerSlam, Saturday, August the 21st. Remember, it's on a Saturday from the home of the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, Allegiant Stadium, which a lot of people are kind of complaining about the fact that when you have to go to Allegiant Stadium, now you have to go in and walk about a third of a mile over a bridge to get to the stadium from the parking lot. And some people are kind of complaining about the fact that you got to walk a third of a mile. Really? Come on. So on the touring schedule, September 11th, they'll be doing a super show in Washington, D.C. They'll be Albany, New York on September 12th. They'll go to Boston, Massachusetts for Raw, a SmackDown in Atlanta at State Farm Arena. They'll do live shows in Augusta, Georgia, and North Charleston, South Carolina. They'll do a Raw in Raleigh, North Carolina, September 20th. Wells Fargo Center, Philadelphia, September 24th. Super Show in Hershey, Pennsylvania, back in their old stomping grounds. Cincinnati for Raw at Heritage Bank Center, September 27th. So they're back on the road. No more Thunderdome. That's done. Done, and done. Now, and the SmackDown's coming up tomorrow, or Friday when I record, at Toyota Center, Houston. So we're finally going to get those live crowds just to get things sparked up for Money in the Bank. That's going to be fun. One other thing I saw in some news I thought would be very important is the NXT is being pushed off the USA Network due to Summer Olympics. So much like Dynamite, they had to get pushed off for NBA playoffs. What'll happen instead is that the July 27th episode of NXT will be on the Sci-Fi Network for one night. And we don't know about the August 3rd episode if they do the same thing because the Olympics will run for 2 weeks. Next week's NXT, Raquel Gonzalez will defend the NXT Women's title against Xia Li. Bobby Fish and Kushida take on Roderick Strong and Tyler Rust of Diamond Mine. And the fallout from Karrion Kross, taking Samoa Joe, and Mandy Rose's trade from Raw. All coming up on next week's NXT. There you go. So, there we are. We'll leave it there. Very excited this weekend. Coming up for Impact Wrestling Slammiversary and WWE's Money in the Bank this weekend. We will do separate shows Saturday, Sunday night right here on the Wrestling Observer podcast. We'll do it for all of you right here. And leave it there. So, enjoy Slammiversary Money in the Bank this weekend. Come back this weekend. We will be doing 2 post shows for both of those shows right here on the Wrestling Observer podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.